Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about, something that I disagree with a lot of coaches and lifters on. Uh, Even though I agree with the point completely that no one exercise is required for gains. Right? There is no one single specific exercise that you have to absolutely do to get phenomenal hypertrophy. We're not going to get into the topic of strength. We're not going to get into the topic of sports. But, purely from a muscle gain perspective, yeah, I think that is a true statement. And I think in general, movement patterns are probably a bit more important than specific movements. And I don't think that's an unreasonable position. In fact, all available evidence would suggest that it is very much the case. Right, so there's no problem with that position. The problem comes when people say silly stuff then like, oh, these movements are trash, traditional movements. In this case, you'll see me doing squat, bench, and deadlift in this video. Then I'm doing some dumbbell curls in there too, just to make the bros feel better. All right? It's a basic movement. But, they'll say stuff, and I've seen coaches who come from a bodybuilding background who work with Gen Pop clients, and I've seen them brag. I don't squat, bench, or deadlift, and none of my clients do. It's like, really? You're telling me none of your male clients even bench press, and you're telling me none of them care about it? Because it sounds like at that point, you're then projecting that onto your clients, your disdain for classic movements. You're projecting onto them, because I promise you there's no way you didn't have a single male client ever who didn't care about their bench and didn't say, hey coach, I'd kind of like to be a little stronger at my bench. You tell me that's never happened. I don't believe you. I think you're a liar. Let's just call it like it is. You're lying. Because there's no way none of them did. In fact, I bet you there's no way less than 30% of them fall into that category, if you're lucky. So again, this is nonsense. But here's the thing: when it comes to basic movements, the thing to always remember: the basics are basics for a reason. They're basics because they work. They do work. Doesn't mean we have to specifically do any one of those movements, but what it means is they have a lot of value. Okay, there's also a lot of data and information because movements that are very basic, people have a lot of experience with them out there. Guess what? A lot of information, a lot of studies on them, a lot of research. Okay, that means they've been studied heavily in the lab. Coaches have analyzed them for decades. It means we know a lot about how to adjust those movements for different goals, including emphasizing certain muscle groups. We probably have studies looking at that. You take any basic lift, classic lift that you can think of, especially with a barbell, I promise you it's been studied in the lab how changing your grip or hand angle or knee angle or stance width actually affects muscle recruitment through the body. I promise you it's been studied. Okay? This means that we've got a lot of really useful information on these movements. Also, they probably work a lot of muscle. These movements, because they're basic exercises, tend to be very good for efficiency. So if you have clients who don't have endless gym time, a lot of times utilizing a lot of these movements is actually a very efficient way to get muscle on them. Okay? So to have complete disdain and to say I don't use these movements, that's a ridiculous mindset. Like, you're not looking at all the available tools if you're saying that. You really aren't. You're not being objective about it. If we're doing that at that point, we're then saying we are taking a philosophical stance because maybe we don't like powerlifting. Okay? Or because we want to be a contrarian. But it's not because we are seeking the best information, the best programming. Because quite frankly, it makes sense to use a lot of these movements. And so many novice programs are built heavily on them for those reasons. They work. They work a lot of muscle. We have a lot of information on how to perform them correctly, how to load them. Right? This stuff exists. Now, Does this mean that they're the only thing our lifters should ever use, even novices? No, of course not. Of course not. Right? I mean, if anything, there's definitely some things that should be included for more novice lifters. So maybe some stuff for their lower backs, right? Some sort of back extensions additional beyond deadlifts, possibly extra hamstring work. I think we could also definitely say, outside of our basic movements, doing some curls, letting guys do some curls, even as novices, can be some merit to that. It's not a bad idea. You'll keep them happy, and it'll probably help their biceps. We could argue about how much curls help novice lifters with their biceps. If they're really necessary, they're not necessary. Just like, again, we just said nothing is necessary, but they're probably pretty helpful. They'll probably gain a little more bicep if you let them do them. Right? And it's not going to hurt them. But there's no need for us to have disdain or to hold some strange negative view of basic exercises. Learn to coach them correctly, learn to do them correctly. They have a lot of merit. They bring a lot to the table. And again, I want to state, it doesn't mean they're absolutely necessary. And I will always agree to that. Yeah, they're not absolutely necessary, but they're really useful. Okay? And I think that's the difference people forget there. Just because something isn't absolutely necessary doesn't mean in many, many cases it's not a really good idea to do it, or that it wouldn't be helpful. Right? And I think, again, particularly in the context of most people need some big movements. And I think for most people that really is the case. I think most people would really benefit from kind of both ends, right? Let's focus on some big basic movements, progressive overload on those. And then we can do some smaller stuff to fill in the gaps, okay? Or the very traditional concept, let's do some heavy work followed by some pump work. Yeah, that works great. It's a really good idea. We could even argue it's not necessary to do that. No, it's not necessary, but it's pretty helpful. It's pretty useful. It's a pretty solid, time-proven way to do things that works. And I think that is what we have to remember with these things, is instead of always asking the question, is it absolutely necessary to do this, to do anything, as far as our training and nutrition goes? Maybe not. But if it's a valuable tool that's time-proven and it's effective, you don't just throw it out. That wouldn't be wise. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.